Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it is time for the Monday Q&As, and once again you guys overloaded me with questions. Honestly, I had enough good questions I could have easily made 10 parts today. So let's get to it. Okay, first question. What is the point of a refeed? Excellent question, and I had at least 4 other questions that could be related directly to refeed, so I'm going to cover this briefly. When you're refeeding, you are effectively not just doing a cheat. You're in the middle of cutting, you're in a caloric deficit, and you do a overfeed where you go over your maintenance calories for a day, and it's generally from carbs. It's very, very high carb, and there's a reason for that. So let's go into why you would do that. Now, does it affect metabolism if you overfeed with carbs? Yes, but only a very small amount. You've got to remember there's a very limited amount of adaptation that the body's makes based upon metabolism and thyroid function. It's not as extreme as a lot of people think it is, but it does exist. I mean, you might boost your metabolism back up another 40 or 50 calories a day from the refeed. But what it does do is that, one, it lets you get the psychological benefits of dealing with your cut and your need to binge and stuff, because if you get to eat a bunch of giant plates of pasta and rice or pancakes, that will usually get the job done. The other thing it does is it completely replenishes all of your muscle glycogen. You usually get a super compensation effect, which is going to give you better workouts, better training. It's going to help you burn more calories over the coming week. It's going to help you retain muscle mass a lot more efficiently. Should you be worried about fat gain from it? Absolutely not. If you keep your dietary fat very, very low and you've been in a caloric deficit, you could literally eat and you drop your fat to say 30 or 40 or 50 grams at the most that day. As a healthy male who's working out, you could probably get away with 1,000 calorie surplus on a refeed and not gain any body fat from it. You could literally knock down 600, 700, 800 grams of carbs in one day and get away with it. And Lyle McDonald did a lot of work on this, and a lot of his UD 2.0 diet is based around this protocol for recompositioning people, but I'm not going to get into all that. So the truth is, no, you're not going to gain fat from it, but it will contribute to your overall weekly calories. All right, next question. Hey Jason, why do you think many lifters choose to compete in tested feds like the IPF when they are clearly using PEDs and have legit options to compete untested? One, we do have the competitive nature of people to consider here. That is absolutely a factor. But there's some other factors too. As someone who has been in the game a very long time, who knows people personally who do this, who compete in tested federations, who have the option of untested, who still choose to cheat, I've heard a couple different explanations directly from the mouths of these people. One, they'll tell you, because if I do the untested, I can't win. I know a guy who does that. He was a while back here in England. For his age and weight class, he was 5 pounds away from the deadlift record, and I do believe he finally got it. So he had broken a deadlift record here, and he does something like 3 cycles of Dianabol a year. And I kind of had asked him that question, and he looked at me and said, mate, because I can't win. I can walk in and win meets or place in the top 5 in the tested feds and still pass with what I do, but if I walk into the other feds, I can't place very well, and I sure can't win anything. And as he said, a lot of the other guys are doing it anyway, so it's still fair. Now, the other reason is that, just like when you get into the bodybuilding issue, the drug doses are getting really, really, really high in powerlifting compared to where they used to be. That's why you're seeing so many guys breaking records now again. We get streaks of time to where hardly anyone breaks world records again for a decade, and then now we're seeing a bunch of guys breaking them again. Why do you think that is? Well, I'm just someone who knows people, coaches who work directly with some of these guys. I know kind of what drugs they're using as of recently, and their drug doses are insanely high. Most people who use steroids, even who compete, do not want to megadose. They don't want to deal with the health risks. They don't want to deal with the side effects. And they know that to be really competitive in the untested feds, they're going to have to use a lot of gear. Grams and grams. They don't want to subject themselves to that, but they still like using gear. They like the other benefits of the gear outside of just the performance, because there are a lot of reasons people use this stuff. But they don't want to use 5, 6, or 10 times what they currently use so that they can be truly competitive. But if they walk in and just pass the test in the tested feds, which isn't overly hard to do, They can still use their gear. They can still be competitive, place well at meets, without subjecting their body or their pocketbook to the problems associated with very high dose gear use. So that absolutely is another factor. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's why they do it. I wouldn't personally do that. All right, next question. Shrugs versus overhead shrugs for traps. Okay, comes down to the question of what are you using a movement for? Now, people will say, well, I want to isolate just one muscle, and I oftentimes ask, what do you want, overall development, or do you want to isolate just one muscle? Is the overhead shrug just as effective as the shrug, and maybe in some ways possibly superior? Yeah, it could be. Do I think it can build really good traps? Absolutely. It is a good trap isolation movement. I think it does a very good job if it's executed correctly. However, when compared to the shrug, you're using a lot less weight. You're not building up all of your core and these various stabilizer muscles. The shrug, the heavy barbell shrug, builds a lot more than just the traps, which is why I oftentimes advocate it for people. So it has other benefits outside of that. Just like if you could have a lift that builds your biceps just as much as a concentration curl but builds other muscles up, it's worth considering using it instead of a concentration curl. So that's what we're dealing with the overhead shrug versus the regular shrug. So it's just a matter of what you're trying to do with it. Both can build traps very effectively, but the barbell shrug can build other muscles with it, but it's also more taxing on your body. You're near the end of a training session, you're too fatigued to do heavy barbell shrugs, and you still want more trap work, well, then that's a spot where an overhead shrug might become useful. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.